Welcome everyone to another episode of Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16.
And I'm Strange Kirk.
And Handy's Kirking. Handy, where you at?
I'm Strange Handy.
Awesome. So today we got a power-packed episode for everybody. We got a lot of people here, so let's just quickly say hi to everybody. From Bold, we have CapnMal.
What's happening?
From MBD, we got Epi the Underboss.
What's up, everybody?
Bold again, Komarosu. Did I say that right?
Yep, you got it. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Mudd is here.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Seventh from IMM. Seventh. Okay, we'll come back to SeventhSamurai from Bold. How you doing?
Hey, good morning. Happy to be here.
And Nash from Dark. What's up, Nash?
How's it going?
Hey, thanks for making the time to join us. All right, guys, I want to get through a couple of things. Handy.
Yes,
Handy.
sir. Yes,
Handy.
I'm here.
Your challenge was answered by Chemo.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Oh, good. My base got blown up in 5 hits. That was awesome. He spanked me. He got me.
It's a good thing we don't raid you because he would have taken a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, he totally could have too. I didn't notice for at least a good 30, maybe an hour. Yeah, probably about an hour.
Oh, that he cracked you on the 5th hit?
Yeah, I didn't even realize I had gotten hit for like an hour afterwards.
Yeah, wonderful Scopely notifications. But yeah, I think it was 5 hits with a Newton.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, he got through pretty quick, actually. I think I only had... most of my ships were out. I don't even remember. I'd have to look. This was like a little while ago.
I think you had a Disco and a Stella at your base.
Right. I didn't have much there. The ships are really what protects your base. If you don't have any ships home, doesn't matter what your power is. It just seems that a really powerful ship can get through,
Right. So just for edification, Chemo's a level 50, Handy's a level 49. Five hits with a Newton. I don't know Chemo's Newton power. I think it's like in the 15, 18 million range.
It's
but
22.
Yeah, how much?
22 million.
22 million.
It's pretty beefy.
Right. I think that's bigger than my entire station and my ships combined.
Is that max?
No, I don't think that's maxed. It's close, but I don't think that's maxed.
So yeah, 5 hits. So there you go. The rating can happen at the upper levels, but is it worth it? Yeah, that's another discussion.
Well, if he had kept going, he could have easily got his resources back relatively quickly.
Sure.
It's probably a 250,000 of try to repair.
Each
hit, yeah. So
$250,000 or quarter billion?
$250,000,000.
Quarter billion, yeah.
$250,000,000. All right, so about 1.25 billion tried to repair.
Right.
All right. Okay, and then the next thing on my list is I keep getting these notifications that Deep Space is going row.
Yeah, it's looking that way.
What? But it's on Wednesday. It's not like this coming Monday, because I'm sure some alliances really want to mine on Monday.
That was kind of my doing. Everybody was all gung ho to go beat up MCRN and mess up Lat Monday for him. And I was like, let's give him a couple days to kind of get used to it,
It's time though. It's definitely time. Even the deeper nodes that I can now get to, even as the lower level that I'm at in the 40s. Even those, every time I go, no matter what day, there's somebody that's sitting there, and I'm like, dude, you were sitting there on 0 8 hours ago. What the hell? So it's gotten too lax. People have gotten too comfortable just hogging up all the damn nodes. So it's time.
I look at it this way. It's a natural progression, right? So we had the same gentleman's agreement in level 40 space, a year ago? And it was taboo to tag anybody in level 40 space because there were only like 30 people that could get there. And then once 100 people could get there, then it became a PvP zone. And the same thing, it's overdue with deep space, honestly, with everybody progress. I mean, quite frankly, you look at every major alliance roster, and they've all got 20 level 40s. It's not like it's difficult to get to deep space anymore for each alliance, and those nodes are clogged, and they're all clogged with zeros. They're all clogged with zeros, and everybody's sitting there with 150k OPL. And quite frankly, I don't see the difference at this point. I mean, instead of the Super Friends Club being able to get there, it's everybody now.
The Super Friends.
Super Friends.
I will say that the difference between the G4 and G3 though is at G4 you have to mine so much to be able to refine it. I mean, hell, just the first selection is 50k, so you really got to mine a lot. So I personally don't hit OPL right now. I just give out zero warnings, and I give them out kind of in advance, a little bit longer, maybe 5-10 minutes. So I still don't hit OPL, but like you said, there's so many zero nodes that you can justify knocking somebody off a node.
Well, I look at it this way. It's like, yeah, you have to mine so much, but if there's OPL sitting there, that's less that I have to mine, and somebody else is being irresponsible with their ship. So it's less that I have to mine. If it's 150k OPL, that's a little enticing. So I have to actually, probably summon in a Vidar or a survey ship to take that much. My Enterprise or my Jelly are not going to take 150 OPL, so I have to actually do some work to get that. But if someone's sleeping on it, who cares?
You put out a good point, Cap. It's with summoning and the lack of real need to use a G4 miner nowadays in deep space makes it that much more PvPable. You don't have to spend a lot on your repairs to get your miner back. So I think that has something to do with it too.
Well, another thing you also got to realize is that if you, for example, I have a tier 6 cavort. It's like my highest one, because when they came out with the Discovery, I was like, I'm not going to spend all my mats on my miners. So now I can move my base out into dark space in one of the surrounding livable areas in faction space, and even that, with only having a warp range of 49 or 54 or 55 or whatever, I can still get into these supposedly warp 70, warp 75 systems without having to summon. I just have to live near them. So it's a lot easier now that people are getting the warp range, so you just move your base out there and just mine all day.
Yeah, especially since Skullplate made the Franklin A so accessible and give it such a high range out the gate. Level that thing up a couple, it's way, way easier for people to get into deeper space now, which is,
it's insane. It's insane. I mean, I had to spend all these mats on my freaking jellyfish to be able to get to warp 85 or 90 or whatever it is now. But like you say, the Franklin right out of the gate, boom, you can get there if you want to. I mean, you're not going to be able to do any kind of PvP or any kind of, hostile grinding, but it at least gets you there.
That's what I was going to say. You can explore with it, but the cargo capacity, I'm sitting at tier 5, I think, with my Franklin right now, and the capacity to do anything out there other than just take a peek and look, or maybe scout, is pretty worthless. So, I think I could take 14k in my cargo hold. It's ridiculous.
I think it's a good way. I think what Tecker had said is, Kirk had said, you can move your base out there, and that's what I've been teaching my guys. It's like, look, if you need it, you need to go mine for it. Definitely use the Franklin if you have no other ships that can reach, and get it out there and move your base out there. You're golden in those hub-centric locations in deep space. Pretty good.
I'm curious. Have you guys been following what's been going on the server 34, council and whatnot? Has anybody been following it at all?
We're not invited, bro.
Okay. Well, I wormed my way in there, and so they had wanted to. I don't know who initially brought it to the table or whatnot, but they wanted to basically vote that G4 miners would be protected. And I about lost my shit over that one. And, you know, I just can't believe that anybody would be okay with that.
Is this the Server 34 council that doesn't even have the top 5 alliances on it? So
yeah, well, I mean...
So they probably don't even have G4 miners anyway, so what the fuck are they talking about?
Well, I think they were trying to appease the higher levels, thinking, okay, well, we've heard a couple of them say it's expensive to repair these things, such as Key, like Grand Admiral Key.
Well, he's a special case, though. He gets pissed when anybody touches him.
Yeah, that's true. And yes, they are expensive, but I made the analogy, and Key even sent me a message agreeing with me that he thought it was hilarious and totally true. I made the analogy that, hey, if you go give a Lamborghini to somebody that's on welfare and you're surprised they can't make the payment, like, okay, does that mean that we should just excuse all their payments and let them keep it for free? Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. So, like,
no,
if you're using, exactly, if you're using a G4 ship out in deep space and you're way OPL and you get blown up, you just can't bitch about it. You can't. It's ridiculous.
That's it. And quite frankly, Handy, you know, I love the simple ROE because of this, because it makes things absolutely simple. OPL is what? It's OPL. It doesn't matter where. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't matter what ship you're using. It doesn't matter how cool you think you are. And quite frankly, use your best judgment as the attacking player to who you're going after. If you can't handle the consequences of hitting a certain player, then don't hit that player. Because we all know Key is going to lose his shit if you touch him. If you even tickle his feet, he's going to lose his shit and go knock over every base he can and have a temper tantrum because you hit his miner. But that's okay, because if that's the way he plays, if he plays angry like that and he gets a little sauced up or whatever, I don't care. I just don't hit him anymore. So I just got to be smart with what I do. OPL is
exactly.
OPL. I don't care what
nail on the head.
Quite frankly, if you can beat the 3 million power Hydra sitting on an OPL node in deep space with your Franklin A, because it's the only thing that can get there, and you're only artist 10,000, is that a wise move?
Probably not.
Yeah. If you're going to use a ship, be prepared to pay for it. If you can't afford to use a ship, don't use the fucking ship. That's your choice, right?
Exactly.
And that was my exact point on the council.
That's just universal, right? Like when I first went out and got the freaking the jellyfish, I was still at the point where I had not advanced up into the 40s, where I was able to get a bunch of tritanium every day and get a bunch of resources. And even though the jelly's not that expensive in the grand scheme of things, when you go from repairing a tier 6, tier 7 Augur Enterprise at 300k tritanium, and then you jump to almost 2 million every hit, that changes the game a little bit too. So for the first little while, my jellyfish pretty much stayed at home, and I just kept using my G3 Epic until I got to the point where I was able to get the tritanium from all the rewards, and I was able to kind of stockpile that. And it's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, same
the
thing.
argument.
My Kelvin's 10 million. It cost 100 million try to repair. I didn't use it for almost a year. Now that I can afford to use it, I use it all the time. Right?
Yeah.
I look at it this way. As a PvP...
Yeah, hold on. Cap, hold on. Mudd, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, if I could please bring up the point. This is really moot anyway. It doesn't look like it's going to pass to even go to the top one.
It's very true. It doesn't look like it's going to pass. I just wanted to comment for people that thought that it was a good idea to make that a rule.
We have already seen that there are a lot of big power players that don't really give a damn what happens in the Server 34 Discord.
That is very true.
So you have to understand that that's great that a lot of these other people are, but the power central alliances, if they decide that, well, no, we kind of think it's stupid. We think we need to do this. We've already seen that it's going to happen anyway, and that's either going to be incorporated into it, or there's going to be a big battle, and people are just going to get their teeth kicked in. I mean, right or wrong, it's going to happen if they wish it to happen. And yeah, it kind of sucks, and it kind of forces people's hand, but and believe me, I'm nowhere near being powerful. I'm like a higher mid-range guy, so I would then have to navigate that as well.
Now, that may be true and all, but for the most part, big alliances tend to fall back on server ROE. Like, they'll use that as their basis as a defense for an argument. Like, oh, well, it's within row. I know I was being a complete dick and trolling you, but it was row. I mean, come on. Like, you can't just fall back on that you know what I mean?
I mean, the rules of engagement are fake anyway. The rules of engagement are fake. They're derived by, quite frankly, an infinitesimally small portion of the population of their. And my problem with the quote-unquote server row is that it's determined largely by basically 3 alliances. And they're the ones doing the talking and doing the decision-making. And quite frankly, when Bold decided to go our own route, we were like, listen, yeah, we're going to play the game, and we're going to play it relatively civilly. But at the same time, you're not going to tell us how to play our game, period. That's why Bold began. Is because we were all in alliances that told us how to play the game that I'm spending my time and money on. Which, quite frankly, at that point in time, with a certain person who thinks that they control the entire server, evidently, was trying to tell me, oh, you can't do that. And I said, the hell I can't. I just did.
Well, you can just blast somebody. Go ahead. Who is it?
Oh, we all know who it is. I don't have to say it's letter Q. But at the same time, I mean, it was FTFC back in the day, December of what, December 2019 was when we started this. So you're looking at, and that was right after the IDVA war and started Nona and all of that stuff came to pass. Believe it or not, Nona and Bold were about the same age. Kind of crazy to think that. Had marginally a little bit more success. But I say that in jest, guys. Just laugh at that.
Marginally.
Marginally. I mean, you can see it. If you really look at the numbers, it's a little bit different. But at the same time, we decided as a group and as kind of a culture to say, you know what, we're going to determine our own gameplay. And quite frankly, our row is out there. You can rules that we have put in place by voting within ourselves. What do we want to do? It's in plain public sight on our Discord, and it makes sense. It makes sense. If someone attacks you, you attack back. That's
that brings something to my attention that I really kind of wanted to address with the way I believe that MBD and Bold handle themselves, and that's letting your entire alliance vote on issues.
All right, wait, hold on, Handy. Let's table that discussion for a sec. I do want to get back to it, but I want to table it for a sec. Last point I want to make, or Omen, did you have something to say?
Well, yeah, probably about 10 minutes ago, but that's okay. It was in regard to the server 34 calling a governing body or whatever. I truly think that the time for that governing body to act as a sovereign over 34 has passed, and I think Mal alluded as to the why, but I'll stop there. Thank you.
All right, cool. So last point, hopefully at some point in time, people will look at Vidars as something you can hit OPL to and token spaces. But let's table that discussion for another time, and let's get back into why we're all here. There's an ongoing war. Did anybody know? I didn't know this. There was an ongoing war going on.
What war?
Yeah. Man, it just blew my mind. Seventh, you're here, right? Seventh?
Here, guys. How you doing? Sorry about the technical difficulties.
No worries, bro. All right. Why don't you kind of recap kind of your agreement that I guess you and Epi worked on together, and what you guys presented to MBD as a kind of like a settlement agreement.
Yeah, I think Epi and I did a lot of work on it. We got both leaderships on the final version. Basically, it was basically hands off. Everybody hands off for about exactly 50 days. And there some things for some mechanisms. We listened to the criticism from MBD and about how we structure our leadership. So what we did is we took some time. I think we took almost a week to formalize those things, and so we put that in agreement as well. As active good faith to show that we take input, positive input, and we're putting it out there for them to look at, and that's how we're going to play, and just so it's clear and transparent. And then there's some other small details about being respectful in GC, small stuff like that where small things conflict into bigger things. And I don't know how much of the details you want to get into, but those are kind of the main.
So just tell me how many points were there of various points of etiquette versus management versus leadership, whatever. How many points were total created in this agreement?
Sure, got it. So there's some terms. So we just to show that that we took things to heart and we're trying to move on. We had a whole accord.
No, I mean physically in your agreement, how many like physical points?
Oh, I got you.
Separate points did you lay out?
10 terms, and I would say probably being like mechanism 1, 2. I'm looking at it now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mechanisms, and then 1 is for just the time limit when the hands-off period ends, and then 1 was a summary of the structure we're using for dry hitters internally to make clear. So that's the breakdown.
All right, so like 11 points total or 12?
Total.
All right.
So 8 mechanisms.
And so when did you guys finalize it and present it to MBD?
I think we finalized it evening about 8:30. Sent it over to Epi, and Epi's been great working with me on this, and I think he got over to MBD leadership pretty quick. That was Thursday night, about 8:30.
Wait, like the 8:30? When was the date?
April 22nd, Eastern, 8:30. Yeah, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, cool. And then I'll kick it over to Epi and Mudd. Did you get Epi? I know you worked on it too, right? So, what was your impression of the final agreement, and what happened with on the MBD side?
I'm in a restaurant right now picking up breakfast, so I'm sorry I got the stupid mask on, so it's it's muffing me hard here. Mudd, why don't you jump in for me real quick, and then I'll hop on in about a minute.
Got it. So basically, Epi brought it back to leadership. We looked at it and we said, honestly, this is a no. This is not going to be acceptable. There is absolutely zero accountability on their end. No actual admission of what happened. The fact that they have escalated every step of this war. I actually have an entire chronology of the war from December to now written. I'll be happy to go through later. And that was the biggest point. It was the fact that there was not a surrender or apology. It was an equal blame on both sides, which we know is in fact not to be true.
Well, I can kind of surmise just because I know what happened, but essentially,
What, that chef got him?
No. as far as the agreement, because I've talked to Epi about it. And
well, hold on. Just
hey, Mudd, you're gonna have to leave the channel, exit the channel.
Yeah, you're gonna.
And come
Yeah,
back.
just jump out and jump back in. I mean, Handy, I get it, but don't. I want to hear it from them as opposed to your interpretation.
Makes sense, of course.
I'm sorry, I just lost everybody there for a minute. Did my explanation come through? Okay, yeah, there was no admission of guilt. We looked at it. We took it to the membership. The membership, we had voted a while ago. We've given them enough chances that it's KOS until IMM is done. In the interest of moving forward, everybody being able to get back to their own gameplay, especially IMM, suffered more than anyone else in this, despite what they may claim. We went ahead and took it to membership. Membership said, no, we're not going to take it.
And just to clarify, done meaning what? You want IMM destroyed, obliterated, or you just want them to be truly done with messing with you?
Honestly, it was done as in no more IMM, period. Just like with.
But you realize that's not going to happen. They're just as tight knit as MBD is. That's like saying, that.
Well, that was the original agreement initially before this came out. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm almost there.
We can kind of hear you, Epi. We'll wait to talk with you till you're out of that restaurant, bud.
Thanks.
Yeah, no worries. But
so, if we have time, I'd like to go through the chronology of why we're still at war.
Well, no, we've already gone over the chronology here. I mean, what do you think, Tech? I mean, we've all got a pretty good grasp on the order of things. We've gone over it before.
There are actually several things that have been overlooked in that chronology.
Right, but we don't need to nitpick. I think that's part of your guys' issues. Is it's like, and specifically MBD. I feel like you guys are getting a little bit too detailed into what IMM did wrong. I mean, if you hold on to all of that, you're never going to be able to move on. You know what I mean? It's like you just kind of got to let it go for yourself. Make a decision for your alliance. What's best for your alliance, and let it go. Like holding on to all that and being so focused in on what happened and what went wrong and why you're pissed at IMM, it's unhealthy. In my
mind
opinion.
if I tag team in here real quick, Andy? So as far as that goes, the reason MBD is being so meticulous with this, I believe, is because IMM, and we had a peace accord, and IMM went and voted and broke it and said no, and then they started dry hitting again. Quite frankly, their entire method and this entire thing started because of dry hitting by IMM members on MBD back in December. And then they dropped tags and went and created another alliance and started dry hitting again, which, if it would have happened against any other alliance that was, I mean, quite frankly, the rule used to be if you drop tags to dry hit and then go back to your old alliance, then you were server KOS, right?
Well, I don't think anybody ever actually did that, but yeah, I mean, people tried to make that a thing.
Did, Space Ghost did. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, but nobody ever actually hits those people.
Trojan did, TM.
Yeah, but nobody actually hits those people. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you can say it's KOS to the whole server, but the whole server's not going to actually go after that person.
But
hey guys, can you hear?
It's funny.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
We can hear you, Epi.
All right, I'm out. I'm back in my car. I'm sorry about that. Just picking up breakfast for the family. So I am listening on all this. Yeah. So just want to break it down for everybody so they understand. First, I want to say thank you to Seventh and Octo for putting something together, for accepting the challenge that Handy and I and Rap put out on that last podcast to kind of organize, show that you're trying to put some structure together. So I do want you to understand that as a group, we do see there's a handful trying to make some change. So I definitely want to acknowledge that. That's number one. Number two, the reason it had to go to our entire membership, what Mudd was trying to get to, and why we also sent this over to Omen, Mudd, Akoma, because they're just as much involved with us due to our alliances, is the fact that it's been broken so many times prior that it's above and beyond just leadership. So I just want everybody to understand that. Like,
Well, here would be my main question. Are you guys, what do you think is best for your alliance at this point? If you were to stand back and look at it, would you say the best thing for your alliance is to continue this war and try and ground IMM into dust? Or to let it go, or somewhere in between? I'm just curious what you personally think is best for Bold and MBD.
Well, I can't speak for Bold. Obviously, whatever they decide, we'll always respect, whether they continue with us or not. Obviously, they know, like I've said to them before, our relationship is more important than anything. And if I had to do whatever, these guys are literally my brother in another alliance. Like, just if we could put it all together, I would. But per scope play, we can't. It's too hard to do it. To answer your question, though, and what I was trying to get to was the fact that enough of our guys, it's not that they don't accept anything. I want to be very clear here. Initially, after all the hours and time that I had put in with Get It and you, Handy, and gone above and beyond, making an unbelievable peace agreement that was kind of thrown aside. And it's not thrown aside. I want to make this clear. We know it wasn't thrown aside by Seven. We know it wasn't Octo. It wasn't most of their guys. Unfortunately, it was a failure of leadership from Get It, communication, and no structure. So we see that you guys have recognized that. I know some of you guys have gone to Dark for some training, some leadership training with Rap. I know Nash got involved. Thank you, Nash. To just basically tell them, look, you're here. It's no bullshit. Just do what you got to do. Learn how to structure. As far as MBD, it's not that our players aren't willing to accept something, but what was drafted for them, how they feel, understand, it wasn't acceptable because the way it was written, and just understand this, Hunter, it's basically like saying, okay, look, you go to your corner, we're going to go to our corner, and let's just end it after 50 days. Done.
I know we've talked about it, and I agree with you that I'm not surprised they voted no, but just so long as it's not that. So it basically got voted down because MBD didn't like the feel of it, the way it was worded, how it was presented, who it came from, and I honestly agree with you that had the exact same agreement been put up by MBD, there probably would have been squashed by now. You know what I mean?
That's part of it. That's part of it. The other part of it too is just kind of like we said in the last podcast, the feedback I got from my guys, which, I know maybe for some people out there it's hard to understand, but
Well, you take feedback, but as leadership, you should make a decision, not put it up for a vote to your entire alliance. I just think that's crazy. There's
Handy,
just too many voices.
Yeah, but you got to understand, no offense, and I respect your opinion. Those voices mean more to me than anybody else's for the fact that these are the guys who, right, and it's not to be in a mood point. It's just.
But would you agree that sometimes your top leadership is going to know the best way to handle a situation? That you've been.
That's what I'm trying to get, Handy. That is the fact that we did do that the first two, almost three times. You got to understand that. So after the third or fourth time, if I'm a player and this keeps happening and I don't really know what's going on, even though we are very transparent, screenshots, we explain what's going on. At some point, you got to bring everybody else into it because they're the ones who are involved in fighting this. So I agree with you. 90% of everything in-house for MBD is handled by leadership and everybody goes along with it. They really do, whether they agree or not, and that's in leadership and the regular ranks. But for this particular situation, because we're on our fourth try, these are the guys who have to sit there and stare at their miners and make sure they're not getting blown up if they have to mine. These are the guys who are hunting all day because that's what they got to do. their feedback at this point, like we had talked about, was okay. So if we don't accept this the way it's written, what would be acceptable from IMM? What is the goal here at the end of the day? And that's where we left it with our members. And I got so much feedback, Mudd included. You've seen how much feedback. I got a whole channel back. A lot of it comes back to two things. One, accountability. The way it was written, and I know Octo is probably like a lawyer or something, and he did a great job, but he put it very, no responsibility on ours, no responsibility on yours.
That's a typical lawyer way of approaching something, and that's probably why it was written like that. Nobody wants to admit blame; they just want a resolution. And in this case, it wasn't what was needed, is what you're saying.
Correct. It's just, and then it's like, okay, we're still not going to hold, and this goes back to what Captain Mall was talking about. We're not holding any accountability. That was probably the biggest feedback I got from everybody. Is there's just no. It's not just for saying, oh, hey, we fucked up. Okay, which I think would have helped a lot in some aspects for the guys who are like, this is the fourth time. But it's more like, okay, the guys who actually left and actually dropped tags and dry hit, all those guys are just got off scot-free. And we gave them that in the last one. And it got pushed aside. And we know, again, it was failure of communication, leadership, things like that. And I'm sad, which they're trying to correct, and I see that. But the fact is there's still no punishment for anything that happened. So we're not asking anybody to sacrifice somebody here as far as like, oh, hey, some guys are like, yeah, if they booted one of them to show us, cool. I think we would take it. I don't think that's the majority of our group. They just want to see something. So show us something. So you're saying something, which I appreciate, but it's showing something.
Hold on. Wait. So first of all, I want to get into a couple more points here, but Epi, what did you, because you spent some time for this agreement, what did you personally think about this agreement?
Well, I didn't put all that much time on this agreement. I'm just being honest. I mean, just to be clear, M really put this together. Like he had said, Seven, they worked hard on putting this together for about a week. He presented me at the initial agreement. I think it was starting like 120 days hands off and things like that. Brought it out to our leadership, shared it with Bold, and we all agreed.
Wait, no. Epi. What did you think? I don't care about anybody else at this point.
I'm sorry. My personal feeling.
Yes.
Me, what I personally feel. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm miscommunicating. I thought the effort was there. Yes, I do 100% agree the effort is there. I thought the time frame was too long, because there's too many areas of opportunity to make mistakes. I feel like, no offense, guys, and you guys play enough. If you can remember what you did 2 weeks ago, God bless you, let alone 120 days ago. If you guys aren't keeping track of shit. So that was one thing. The other part too was the row. I agree with Captain Mall and everybody else. We're not here to tell anybody how to play row. Every alliance deserves their own. But what was bothering me, and I think Seven agreed to a point, was the fact that they wanted to still play row their way, meaning they can hit floating warships. We obviously don't play that way. With us particular as groups, as alliances, who've had so much bad blood and so much issue, the conversation I had with Seven was like, look, man, I get it. And I'm really honestly, I want you to understand we're not telling you how to play row. And I'm not going to make you change your row for us. But I feel like it would be smart on their part and our part to not hit each other with floating ships, period. Like, just leave it out. 4 ships, just leave it off the table. Because all you're going to do is going to start shit 6 months down the road, 4 months down the road. If it's just 1 or 2 guys, because unfortunately, I don't see most of the alliance having this problem. It's just a handful of guys who like to play on that.
But wasn't that one of the points in the agreement, is not to hit floating warships?
No, that was the thing. It was written that they can play their row after whatever the hands-off day, and floating warships is part of that was okay. And that was a big problem for us. And then another written part in that was, we're going to hold these guys accountable this way for dry hitters, tag droppers, but it's applicable to change. A lot of my guys just didn't like that. So again, I think the intent was there, but the way it was written was poorly executed.
Wait,
Tech?
what?
Hey, Tech. Can I just throw something here real quick? It's not long
Sure.
enough now. It's just basically a question. So, real quick. So you guys aren't into hitting floating warships, right?
Correct.
Epi? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm just posing this as a question, right? It's not like a challenge or a fuck you or
No,
anything.
no, no. Please.
So
No, go ahead, bud.
in dark, we are allowed to hit floating warships. As a matter of fact, a lot of other alliances are. So, here's my question to you, and this is I'm going somewhere with this, so just bear with me. I'm not trying to like trap you into a crazy answer or anything.
You're fine, brother. You're fine.
If I come and hit one of your floating warships, what's going to happen?
If you come
like hypothetically,
yeah, I'd probably reach out to Rap or one of you guys and be like, "Hey, what's up?" If that is your row, then your guys would be open to that. Obviously, we wouldn't want to start being dicks about it, but if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Right. But what I'm saying is, would it cause an issue? Because if you come to Rap, and it has something to do with the way we play, I mean, he's not going to be rude about it, but I mean, he's probably going to tell you in a roundabout way that, like, well, that's what we do, man. So, I mean, I don't know
Agreed.
what to tell you. Like,
so Kirk, I agree with you. It's not a fact of you can't play the row. I think if there was no bad blood, if we didn't have this outgoing, crazy amount of time we've all been fighting each other, it wouldn't be an issue at all. It would just be like, okay, look, for you guys, you play that way. If it happens to you, hey, just if these guys have a floating warship, go ahead. It's just how they play. They're not going to bitch about it because that's their row.
So here's my point then. So here's my point. That in and of itself is basically an admission that emotions are getting in the way of logic at this point, right?
Yeah, and that's what I'm agreeing with you. And it's not that, again, I'm going to put this. Yes, emotion is part of it when you've been fighting somebody as long as you have and for all the crap you have. And I'm not saying everybody here is being emotional about it. It's not that.
Right.
But here's the thing. If just to give you an example, it's like, I don't know, man, if you have a drug habit, okay, and you quit and you leave and you don't go hanging with your friends who do drugs, well, the chances of you doing it are not going to happen. But if you go back out and hang with them and that opportunity is there and it's going to make you do something stupid or make a bad judgment, well, that's what happens. So I'm just trying to avoid it at all because, no offense, like I said to my own guys, I am personally over all this, because I personally put in so much time on my own time for months of this on the other 3 agreements that I wrote up, especially the last one with Handy. That's why I didn't want to do anyone. I wanted to see what M was going to bring to the table.
There's no agreement that you guys or anybody's going to be able to write that's going to guarantee that you never have a problem with IMM again. There is no comfy blanket you're going to get out of this.
I agree with that. Now that's kind of one of the points. But here's my thing. At the end of the day, take for example, and I know it's a game, and I hate comparing this game to real life because it's not. But the emotions are a similar thing. You have your friends, and they're getting beat up on, and this is blah 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 blah, right?
Yeah,
let's take for example. Let's just take like the Cold War. All right, people died on both sides. It wasn't just a Cold War. There were points where people killed each other, right? So if we take that and we go back and we look at, well, we just keep holding on to all this emotion, well, then we never would have been able to come out through the other side, right? So at some point, someone is going to have to, pretty much everybody is going to have to set that aside in order to come to an agreement, because if you don't, this is going to continue on and on and on until people just finally, they get sick of it, or the rest of us in the server leave you all behind because you can't mine, you can't do your stuff because you're always getting blown up. So that's what my point is, just that look at the fact that, yeah, well, we don't like what they're doing, but it's okay if these people over here do it because they're okay, they're neutral, we don't mind them. But if they do it, no, because they already did bad stuff in the past. Like it's never going to work. So going to what Handy said, like there's not really going to be something that's going to solve that.
No, I agree, and I'm being real with you. I understand exactly your points. And listen, if it was like, look, it's this or nothing, I wouldn't even have had the conversation or even bothered looking at what Seven wrote. And I made this very clear to Andy as well as our own alliance. No offense, if this was Kim, if this was Daniel trying to present us with something, I wouldn't even bother just because they were the biggest culprits, some of the biggest culprits, not all, of what made this blow out of proportion. So I'm giving Seven and Octo the opportunity. I'm listening. We talked. I voice chatted with Seven, text with him. So we're not saying we're totally out of it here. I was just looking at it down the road like, look, the way I feel about it is accountability. And that's what 90% of my alliance is.
Can I ask the panel a question?
Go ahead, Mudd.
So the thing that started this all back up on February 1st was a player hitting floating Franklin for modulators, right? The Franklin A wasn't introduced.
That's not correct.
Okay, let me finish, please. The Franklin A was not introduced until, what was it, March? And at that point, people were giving away frequency modulators. What's the point of hitting any?
That's a fair point.
First of all, Epi, if you're trying to talk, you got to rejoin the room. But second of all, sure, some people do give away frequency modulators, but if people kill frequency modulators or Franklins for frequency modulators, I mean, and you're not actively mining or farming or whatever, or even if you are, it's, it's like, again, if your emotions run high because of it, then I get it, right? I mean, but at the same time, haven't we always said that OPL is OPL?
And we also say there's a difference between being Roe and being a Richard.
I mean, I think what Epi said earlier really rings true, Handy. For Nona and for Bold, yeah, OPL is OPL. It doesn't matter what kind of ship, blah, blah, blah. Some other alliances think that don't touch me unless you have a valid reason that because I touched you, right? So, and if you touch me, I'm going to touch you back. That's it. I mean, quite frankly, it's a difference in I think the biggest thing to take away from all of this is that every alliance has their own culture. Bold and MBD are not the same, but we work well together. We're not the same. We practice different. We have different approaches to the game.
Right, that's just natural.
We'll hit a floating warship. We don't care. We don't even have to see it OPL. But quite frankly, we have to know how that's going to affect the team before we do it. So, but with MBD, no, they're not going to hit a floating warship because they see that as being a dick. Because there's no reason to do it. Now, if there's OPL there, I can see the reason for hitting a Franklin OPL that's floating. I can see the reason. But MBD translated that differently. You touch me, I'm going to touch you back. It doesn't matter why.
And that's pretty much how every alliance is going to treat any situation. If they feel like they're being attacked or trolled or whatever it is, they're going to fight back.
Well, let me use this example. I have an example real quick. Okay, for example, there's a particular alliance. I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want to give them their 15 minutes of fame here. I think we've talked about them enough. But they have a common practice of hitting OPL data, something that we in Dark, we never do, and we won't. And if somebody does it, you need to let us know because it's something that's going to be handled internally. We don't do that. You can, especially the way data is now, there's no reason to do it. Now, these people still hit us OPL for data. We don't put them KOS. We don't go dry hit them. We still don't hit them for data most of the time. We still follow our own thing. Is it a dick move? It is. But at the end of the day, is it more of a nuisance? Is it worth it to get involved in something even deeper? No. And that's when you take emotions, you set it aside and be like, yeah, this sucks. I'm sitting out here trying to grind this data. You could easily do it. There's a million nodes open. But you choose to come hit me because you're a lazy asshole. But at the end of the day, as I said, we separate the emotion from it and realize that, they play their way. What do? Well, we may try to raid their bases or something, or if we make sure if we see them OPL, we go ahead and get them or something like that. But we don't take it to the extreme that it's going to cause an issue. And if it does, that person is summarily invited to leave the alliance because we don't need those kinds of issues. So I'm just using that as an example.
No, Kirk, that's a great example. So just really quick, and then I'm going to pretty much, I have to hop off, guys. You just said that. Individual interactions, everybody's going to have them where somebody does something wrong or questionable or piss off, and we have the right guys in place. I'll handle 90% of it and never gets beyond that ever. And We have a good system for that. The problem is we're trying to compare one, off issue to 4 or 5 months of constant dick moves on both sides, but more. I have to say, like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, we're trying to compare apples to oranges here.
If you lump that into a war scenario, of course there's going to be dick moves back and forth. You're even when you weren't quote unquote at war, there's still aggression and animosity there, and people are still acting out because they're pissed.
Yeah, but Handy,
I mean,
even
just
when
ask Mudd. He's right here. He does it all the time. When there's an open confrontation, he's gonna fuck with them big time.
Well, hold on, really quick. I just want to answer you on that. And Handy, you were my witness, and this is why I'm glad we did this. Okay, when we had the agreement that Get It, you and I did, that went for about 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, MBD nor Bold did anything to break that agreement at all. Nothing. You didn't see 1 PM, one issue, one question from anybody, not even Get It. In that 3-week span, I PM'd and texted you, me, and Get It in that conversation in Discord, our little place we were all having this conversation out. Every other day, every other fucking day, I was like, Get It, what's up, bud? Sorry to bother you. Your guy is, a Commodore again, or hey, your guy just hit somebody, or your guy's doing this, or your guy's doing that. So, because I think the last one was the most relevant. So you see what I'm saying? You see the difference?
Yep.
So yes,
that's
not provocation.
Correct.
No, Epi's got an extremely good point. They definitely provoked you, and that circles back around to the lack of leadership or lack of structure.
Right,
where
and
there's
even
a
when they
few
provoked
people deciding things for the entire alliance over there that weren't supposed to be in a position to.
Correct, and then on top of that, provocation.
Seventh,
we
go
never.
ahead. Let's give Seventh. He hasn't talked
Yeah, let's
much.
give you some time. Yes, hop in, brother.
Yeah, Epi. Yeah, I appreciate it. I think Epi and I had a pretty good working relationship over the last couple of weeks, and I appreciate. I'm listening to everything you're saying, and yeah, I think we covered in the previous podcast is for that third agreement that you hammered out with Get Her Done, Handy. We understand that there was miscommunication on our side of what that agreement and how it's supposed to be approved or not approved, or approved and just be followed. And I think in previous podcasts, and I'll admit it again now, is that's our side. We didn't realize that it was something you just worked out with Get Her Done, and that was it. And to be honest,
it was supposed to be done, and I don't think Get Her Done told you guys.
Right, and for that 14 days, like where we're going over it and doing it over, is we followed those points in that agreement while we thought we were mulling over. So all the people that were listed in that agreement, they were demoted during that time. We were following all the other terms. So there's no escalation aggression in that period.
Well, what about,
since it's been 3-4 months to get wishes together, so
Seventh, what about the people that were demoted and then upgraded to Commodore? Like, it happened multiple times in a row.
No, that's actually what happened. Was after 14 days when we thought it was a vote for us as a leadership.
No.
It's a working assumption for us. So what happened was once we voted and rejected the agreement in its form.
No, but Get Her Done told us that Get Her Done told us that he told the entire alliance, hey, they're not supposed to be Commodore. What's going on? Stop. You know what I mean? Who's doing this? And nobody would tell him. I mean, this is straight from Get Her Done.
I think that was after the 14 days.
No, it was before.
This is all
definitely before.
No, it was not after the 14 days. It happened multiple times. On the third day, Kemsol was promoted back to Commodore.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, but that's what we're getting at, is the lack of communication and the poor leadership. So it just needs to be fixed. I know you guys are working on it. So, it just needs to be fixed. That's all. So,
yeah, just so you guys know, like, we're talking to a couple of different alliances.
Some of them not here on what best practices for them, how they handle different situations. So we take it to heart very much. We've been in common with a lot of different alliances, trying to see how they structure things, how they handle things. So we saw it as an opportunity to get better, and we tried to put that in agreement so you guys were of it. Didn't mean to offend by that, the language in it. It was us trying to make the effort and show, like, listen, we hear you. We're putting it in writing. And like Epi, like you requested, and I totally agree with make it.
To get back to this little point here, one of the people, I think it was Dog Breath or whatever, who did the dry hitting is gone from the alliance now. But I want to get back to Mudd's point a little bit, that MBD is not going to stop until IMM is no longer an alliance. And that, I mean, that's just to me, that's just a bad way of expressing what your end goals are, and it's not realistic. So is it going to be a perpetual war that's never going to end?
Well, Tech, that was prior. That was before. That was what we agreed on after the last agreement that me, Handy, and Get It had worked. That as a group, we were just like, okay, 3 strikes, you're out, you're done. And then 7 came to the forefront. We started this podcast, and we've opened up discussions again, as you know. So I want to clarify that.
Right. They're here talking. They no longer believe that. That's not their goal at the moment. Although they're willing to continue trying doing that if this doesn't work out.
Mudd, is that still your goal, or is your goal to work something out?
No, my goal is absolutely to work something out. I don't want my players being affected by this. Sure, I'm fine with it. I have no problem going around blowing up ships all day. But in the end result, I want my alliance to grow. And I want them to leave us the hell alone. It's been provocation after provocation after provocation. We're sick of it. There's no reason for us to accept a neutral zone or a neutral terms treaty at this.
Well,
okay. Explain. Hold on. Wait. Explain what that means. A neutral zone treaty.
Well, in other words, there's no blame.
Fine, there's no blame. Holy shit! Like the last war that we had with, or Dark had with Most, or in the last war that Dark had with MCRN, and the last war that Dark had with 13. Nobody gave a shit who was at fault anymore. It was like, okay, we're done. Bye. Go to row. And where did Nash go? Nash left, and too bad Raptor's not here. But it was more like, as far as I understood it, it was like, okay, guys, are we done? Who cares why we're fighting now? Are we done? Can we go back to Farmville? And everybody else like, oh yeah, we're done. We're going back to Farmville.
And how many times did you do that with the same alliance?
Right, that's usually the end of it, typically.
If I may, hey, this is Koma. It sounds like 7th verbally is admitting fault. And I think the issue that Epi was pointing out is that the written agreement doesn't say that. So they just want that to line up.
Well, I mean, this is recorded, so I mean, more people are probably going to hear this and they're going to read that agreement.
Yeah, and then the other point to make is, while I agree that the written agreement is comprehensive, it should be sort of like a reference document, and making it too long would be counterproductive to making sure that it's effective. And the example that I'll bring up is when 7th was trying to itemize the number of points made in that single document. He had to go line by line, which was good because he could do it because he helped write it. But for John Doe, player level 12, he's not going to take the time. So I guess what I'm saying is that it should be simpler to understand. Otherwise, the communication is ineffective.
That's a very good point. I got about 20% of the way through it. I skimmed the rest and was like, okay.
Well, you know what it reads like, right? It reads like our server row. It's overly complicated, and just I at some point I get it. You know, you're fighting each other for so long, and I'm sure Strange Kirk and his love-hate relationship with Jeep has been going on just as long. But I don't think he cares anymore. I don't think Jeep cares anymore.
I don't give a shit, and I'm 100% sure she doesn't give a shit at this point.
Right. So they're on that level that they just don't give a shit. Like, what is so wrong? And I truly, and I think Epi left. I truly want to know what is so wrong with Seventh already saying that their member on the previous podcast that their members did dry hit in their TC. Their members did dry hit to start the damn thing. And like, yeah, okay, now it's over. Let's go back to our happy places. I don't know what is so wrong with saying that.
Here's the thing. Okay, so this is Mal. The problem with saying that is that they have in the past. And I think Epi was very, very clear about that. Mudd was very, very clear about that. The problem with, I mean, quite frankly, every other war that I've seen on this server has ended, and just ended. Just like you were talking about, right? Right, Kirk? So, between reputable alliances. And no offense to IMM, actually offense to IMM, because they have not acted as a reputable alliance. Their word means nothing. We were in a ceasefire and they continued to dry hit.
How you come to that?
No. Let me go on this because this is why. You want to know why it's different and why MBD and Bold cannot just step aside and say, all right, let bygones be bygones. Let's get back to mining. No, because we cannot, in good faith, believe them.
I agree 100%.
That's why.
Well,
you want to know why? That's why. Yes, with Bold, we've been in several conflicts. And every time we say it's over, guess what? It's over. MBD the same way. This is the only one. This is the only alliance that goes back on a ceasefire agreement. This is the only alliance we've ever been up against that has said, you know what? Screw you. Screw the peace. Let's go ahead and continue dry hitting. And it's the same 3 or 4 members. It's the same 3 or 4 people. And those 3 or 4 people need to be dealt with. And if the leadership structure at IMM is not powerful enough or has the intestinal fortitude to do it, then what's the recourse?
I want to bring up. Hold on, Seth. I want to bring up something that Grazi said on when he was on here before, and that is, if you, let's just say you go down the path of like, okay, fuck these people that dry hit, we're gonna kick them out. And the problem with that is, it's not necessarily punishment for them, because they could pull a Grand Admiral Key and just be solo and just terrorize the server or terrorize your particular alliances for eons on end. And I think that what Grazi said about, look, we'll have them here, they're part of a structure, they'll do better, like he's given it to Key, like he's given it to Tapia before, in an attempt to either A, reform them, or just make it a better place for the rest of the galaxy to do what everybody needs to do. Now,
but that's exactly what Daniel did the last time that we gave them a treaty. He went on to dry hit us after leaving IMM after the peace had been declared.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that.
This is before we started talking about this on a more global scale. So I think everybody's more aware of what the situations are like between all the alliances and how everybody's trying to improve. So I'm pretty sure that with the fact that this information is out there and the fact that we're all talking about it, there's going to be a much better response to, say, a peace accord than there was in the past when there's what you call a lack of accountability of people dropping tags and dry hitting. Does that make sense?
That's why we got involved. It was. Mm-hmm.
I want to get to that in a little bit, but and why I asked you guys to come on. But does all of that make sense? Is that now that everybody's out in the open and everybody's talking about it, and more people know what's going on, there's a much better attempt, or at least emphasis, I believe, in my opinion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, on both sides, and by both I mean MBD and IMM, to better themselves as alliances. I know with Epi and Raptor, they put together a plan to have IMM members cycle through Dark just to give them training on what's it like to be a top 10 alliance and how things need to be conducted and whatnot. And I think that people like Kemsol and Daniel and Dune and Seventh and everybody else at IMM is kind of getting a sense of what it's like to be at the top, if you will. Is that not true? That maybe something in the near future might actually help facilitate a more solidified, peaceful agreement.
Hold on, Tech, real quick. I want to acknowledge something that Captain Mal said, and then I want to give Seventh an opportunity to say something. He's been trying to say something for a minute. Mal, basically, what I was gleaning from what you were saying is essentially it's already been tried before, and the hand's been slapped away several times. So now it's kind of like you go to grab a cookie from the cookie jar, and your hand keeps getting caught in the lid. Eventually, you're not going to want to put your hand in that cookie jar, right?
That's part of it, and the other part of it is this, Kirk. It's that, excuse me, it's that the guys that need to be talked to are not at the table. Daniel's not at the table. Alimch is not at the table. Dune is not at the table. Siege Engine is not at the table. Kemsol's not at the table. These guys are just doing whatever they please while we are talking with people that have level heads within IMM, but we can't trust them to be able to control the most powerful guys in the alliance.
Okay, all right. So, Seventh, you had something to say on all this a little while back. Please, speak your piece.
I'm here. Sorry. Yeah, so Cap, I hear you. People you're naming, Daniel, Kemsol, I know you guys got bad history with those guys, but the other guys you're referring to, I mean, us in general, we don't have a rep of dry hitting at all. When you talk to other alliances or other...
You do now.
Look at your Discord channel.
No, but
Well, let him finish.
But if you're talking about like what's going on during the war and the aggressions that happened in between and all, yeah, we're going to nitpick and all that, but those are very specific instances. Which what we're trying to do is say, you guys have a perspective that wrong and we broke agreements, and from our side, we see that there are things that done on MBD side that broke the agreement as well. So there's another view for us is saying, why are they broke the agreements on their end and we're letting it go because we want peace. So exactly what you're saying is what we're saying. So I think that's where we're butting heads. We have a very distinct perspective than what you guys are talking about. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I can see it from, if you're looking at through different lenses, like screw these guys. But what I'm saying is we have that same mentality. So what I'm trying to get to is, get this over with because it's not good for anybody. And also, I don't want bad blood. I mean, bad blood is there. So the things that I wanted to push for in the agreement was a long layoff, because I think I recognize that there is a lot of bad blood and it's not going to go away right away because it's been going on for so long. So that's
what I can do, as far as if you want to view into my personal lens, I will tell you, as a bold member, okay, I'm not an MBD, I'm in bold. We joined up in March and when we do something, we do it 100%. We don't just kind of skirt around the sides of it. So that's why we've been so evident. And we love to hunt. We don't mind having an enemy. It makes the game more challenging, but we don't mind having an enemy. But here's
you guys
the thing.
are good at it.
We are good at it. You're right.
You guys are good at it.
But here's the thing. I don't actively hunt IMM. If I see one, I'll kill him. But here's the thing. A lynch, however the hell you say his name, Mr. Respect and Manners, every time I blow up his ship, it's in my territory. every time, and it's 6 times a day, 10 times a day in my territory. And you want to talk about the cookie jar, Kirk? He's been sticking his hand in that cookie jar 4 times a day at least since Bold joined in.
But we're at war. That's what we're doing.
Sure. But at the same time, what is your version of war? Just hitting miners? We've been going after bases. We've been going after your armadas. We've been going after everything.
I think we're...
And quite frankly...
You've got to look at the power deficit, man. I mean, look at how much smaller they are.
But at the same time, they don't have a TC, so we can't go just sweep their miners 3-4 times a day.
But that's what happens when you pick on a really small alliance. You got 2 huge alliances going after a small alliance.
Time out with that.
Who's picking on who, Handy?
I don't want to hear anybody say that we're picking on anybody. That's tired. Because quite frankly, their power destroyed has gone up more than ours has.
Bold doesn't really need to be involved. They really don't. MBD is more than capable of handling it.
According to who, Handy?
Handy.
It's just my
Say
opinion.
you're a Bold member and you come over to MBD for particles and you get hit mining 4 times a day. You're not going to want to join the war?
And don't join MBD for particles while they're at war. That's a simple solution. Why is Bold even involved in this?
How long has the war gone on?
It's like they're piggybacking on top of it. IMM, I'll be honest, IMM, you started it. But Bold has no fight in this battle other than to just have fun, which seems like all you're doing.
Is this a game?
Of course it is. And if your guys' goal is to what's your reason? What's your reason for being involved?
Koma said it earlier. Our reason for joining was because of the dry hitting and the dropping.
Tag dropping. Yep.
Wait, so hold on, Koma. Explain to me, first of all, first and foremost, why Bold got involved in this war. And I think Mal alluded to you joined in March after the last agreement failed.
Sure. The exact date was February 21st. And so...
See, Mal, you were wrong. You got corrected by your own admiral.
We're equals, man. And so that's kind of the point that I wanted to make. Bold is a little bit different. So where do I begin? So Bold and MBD are allied teams, and most teams, from what I've heard, the questions flying around, why is Bold involved? First and foremost, we're allies, and it didn't always begin that way. At one point, we were at war with MBD when they were mob. We quickly found out.
Sure, go back 100 million years. Yeah, no problem.
Well, a lot of really good relationships in this game start out with conflict because it brings people together and you start talking.
Right.
And even when you're on opposite sides of this, we all still realize that this is just a game.
Case in point, Dark and Nona.
Exactly. We weren't always friendly. And now we're allies.
Correct. And so we take that relationship pretty seriously. And we go a little bit further than most teams will. So when they're attacked, we consider that an attack on both. That's the first point. To clarify the second point, why some people have been asking questions like why, are we sending information, when we're considering action. We have independent councils. What we decide to do at Bold is slightly different. We have different ROEs. At one point, we planned to merge with MBD, and that was one of the biggest sticking points, which we respected. They follow server ROE, and we follow simple ROE. We're actually the first team on the server. I believe Nona was like 3, maybe 4 days later. It switched over. It's complete coincidence. But we were the first team on the server to really vocally, publicly switch over to simple. But yeah, we fully support MBD, and they had asked, we had asked them, we said that we heard that they were at war. Do you guys need support? And they said, if you guys want to join, we're not going to stop you. And we were like, okay, let's do it. And so that was the biggest point, though, was the tag dropping, because it's kind of a dirty way to play.
And I can respect that. We are very, very strict and come down like a sledgehammer against tag dropping, dry hitting. So I can respect that, but we only get involved if the tag dropping, dry hitting is aimed at us. If Dark has an issue with a tag dropping dry hitter, they got to fucking deal with it on their own. Now,
and that's your prerogative, and that's your relationship with Dark. Our relationship with MBD is a little bit closer.
Correct. And the other point I want to clarify, I also saw some questions about our members in MBD and MBD members in ours, and the simple answer to that is particle exchange. It's not that we're one contiguous team, although sometimes it feels that way. We have independent councils, but the reason most people have been seeing, the same players pop up in both teams is it's particle exchange. That's all that is.
Right. So to Nash's and Handy's point, right? The power disparity is, I believe Bold is the number 5 power alliance and MBD is the number 6 power alliance, and IMM is somewhere in like the teens or maybe 20s or something. So my question then becomes, if MBD is a top 5 or top 6 power alliance with a lot of powerful members, why then did you guys jump in the fold against an alliance that whose highest member is like a 36 or something?
It's just not necessary, man.
My answer to that is that IMM should have thought about that before engaging MBD.
I mean, they're using it as I can already tell you what's happening. They're using it as a means to further discourage. But what I'm telling you is it's not having that effect. If anything, they're digging their heels in and fighting back harder.
I will say I'm going to go the opposite way, seemingly the opposite with Tech and Handy, and I respect their opinions, of course, they're close friends of mine, but the one thing I'll say, Tech and Handy, is that what I just got done talking about, and a lot of what we just got done talking about, me in particular, is that people are going to play their own way. So, I mean, if they choose to all team up and just, start roundhouse kicking everybody with an IMM tag, I mean, that's something we just got done talking about it. You can't force someone to play another way or expect them to play a different way, or the same way rather as you. So I will say that to me, in my opinion, it's a bit of a moot point. I think the issue it's one of those things where it gets to a point where everybody's trying to look for the blame game, as I said earlier, talking about the emotion, and everybody starts pointing fingers. Well, then it's this. Well, then somebody presents a logic that you can't argue. They're like, well, shit, they got me there. Well, now I'm going to look over here, and I'm going to say, well, what about this? And then we defeat that. And then so it's always, one person's always looking for a reason. And for me, what I'm getting at is that we need to stop looking for reasons.
No, I don't necessarily care about the blame game. I was just more curious about why Bold would get involved. I mean, it's purely on an informational standpoint of view. Personally, if, for example, Dark and Nona wanted to team up against, say, who's still around in our alliance? That's very small. I don't know. Find our old alliance, Kirk. Well, let's find all the Wars members that are still have Wars tags and just beat up on them. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could do that. It's cool. I mean, sure, we'll bash a bunch of bases in. But the question is, why? Because the reason I ask is not so much for trying to find a blame or anything, but the fact that Bold has 78 members and MBD has 77 members or something in that range, you're giving IMM a bigger target. And because you have territories, it's easier to sweep ships through the territories and throughout open space than it would be when you're fighting one alliance on one alliance. That's all I'm getting at.
No, you're right. But here's the thing. We also learn how to protect our TC. We also learn how to watch our miners. We also learn that quite frankly, the way the game is built, it's a war game. It's not a farming and mining game. That's the reason why every ship in the game has a damn phaser or torpedo or railgun or what have you. Every ship in the game has that.
Did you just turn into Chef?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, so but here's the thing: when we do have an active enemy, and they are an active enemy, it's not the entire alliance. It's not the entire alliance. It's not all of IMM. It's about 5 people. It's about 5 players, but they're dedicated, and kudos to them. And in fact, we've actually had sidebar conversations within Bold saying, you know what, they act kind of like us, where they don't give up. They don't bow down to higher power players, and I can respect the hell out of that. What I can't respect is the fact that everybody's trying to figure out why Bold is involved. I've already told you. Koma's already told you. We're involved because they punched my brother in the face.
Your brother being MBD.
So now that Bold is involved,
that our brother being MBD.
I can accept that answer.
So, I mean, quite frankly, that's how we look at it. We look at it as family, not just, oh, we're an alliance and we get along with them, and if they get attacked by somebody big, and then we'll jump in if they need us. No, it's not like that. And if Epi were still on, I guarantee you, it's all about La Familia. It's about our family. MBD, when we made, they're our only ally. Okay, we don't go out there and make alliances with people just ad hoc. We don't do it. We are very serious about who we ally with. We've allied with MBD only. They are family at this point. We can't break that alliance. It's not going to happen unless something just mind-numbingly earth-shattering happens. So, yes, we are 2 separate alliances. We live in 2 different houses. We are brothers. We are not married, but we are family. So if
Nash, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. I hear you. I hear all this, and my only question is there a realistic end game, or are we going to sit here and continue the same thing over and over again? Because you made the very hold on, let me finish. You made the very point that they're not bowing down to you. So if they continue to not bow down to you, they continue to sweep miners, which is what we do when we call it war. There's not really much you can do differently than in the normal game than when you go to war, is just sweep miners. What is the realistic end game? We give a list of demands. They don't agree to those demands, so you just continue the same thing. They don't stop. Everybody's still frustrated. Everybody's still getting the emotions high and all this stuff over, whatever. Is there realistically an end game, or are you content with continuing this on forever?
I'll tell you right now, and great questions, Nash, and I appreciate it. I appreciate that you care enough to ask. Here's the thing. The end game is this, quite frankly. Daniel and the 4 or 5 players, and I know once the peace accord went through, Alimch stopped. He stopped. So, and he's just playing by, all right, it's a war, let's go have some fun. I get it. Daniel, however, has a history, not just with IMM and MBD. He has a history with 13. He has a history with every alliance he's been in. He's been kicked for dry hitting and playing like a dick. Plain and simple. So I think the end game, quite frankly, is that those rogue elements within IMM need to be dealt with, and IMM's leadership, quite frankly, doesn't do it because he's in the leadership.
Okay, so that's not an end game. You said they need to be dealt with, but they're not going to deal with it. That's not an end game. That's a comment. What is the actual end game? Do you want them to kick Daniel and never let him back, or what if they say no to that? What
if they say no to that? Then that's their prerogative, and that's their signal that they want to continue.
Okay.
Cap, let me just.
So you're saying if they decide to kick the problematic players out, that this would bring forth a peace, so to speak.
In my opinion, yes, but I'm not the end all be all. I'm in this because my brother got punched in the face. They need to deal with my brother, and they need to make amends with MBD.
So, Seventh, you've been kind of silent, and a question for you though: are you targeting MPD?
No.
No. Okay. And what do you say to, I guess, Mal's demand, if you will, to kick Daniel and other rogue elements?
Yeah, I was listening to what you're saying, Cap, and I hear you. I think anybody with the history of that
is not this, like, they shouldn't be in an alliance that's reputable. And what I'd say to you is on that is, if you can hear what I'm saying, is Daniel, I know you said he's been kicked from a lot of alliances, but I can tell you that Daniel's been in IMM for a long time. He does not have a history of that, or we would be having a lot of issues with a lot of different alliances. He is not a dry hitter, but definitely he's laser focused. I think what everyone's referring to is basically he didn't agree with the peace agreement, the first peace agreement, because.
Well, is Daniel your admiral?
So I would say if there's anything.
No, he's not. He's not the admiral.
I know
he's
that.
He's not an admiral. So we were prepared to let him go on his own forever because he dropped without consulting with us. He left, and we, at that point, early on in this whole conflict, is he's on his own. He's doing his own thing. He didn't consult with us, and we were not looking to bring him back in anytime soon because he was doing his own thing because he has a certain mindset. Like, I think if you talk to him, he's highly principled, and if he feels like this is wrong, then he's going to do it without consultation. So what I would say is, if we work something out, Daniel is going to, if we work out something that's fair, Daniel's not going to be a problem for any of you guys at all. I would guarantee that personally. So.
And if he ends up being a problem, will you guarantee that you'll kick him forever? Because that's what it's going to take.
I can say that. And I could say, and I would agree to that 100% because that's how much I am confident Daniel will keep to the peace accord. Doesn't want to keep to the peace accord, then we will kick him.
Last time.
You heard it here. You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah. So Nash, going back to you, because Nash, Daniel was in Dark recently doing the rotational thing. Have you had a chance to talk with him at all
about the IMM-MBD bold war? No, because to be honest with you, I didn't really care. What I did tell him though when he came in is, as long as he is in Dark, he follows Dark rules. If he does not follow Dark rules, then obviously we're going to kick him out. And that would have been our end of it, is just, we're going to get rid of you because we don't want your trouble. Not that we're afraid of anything. It's just, don't start shit for us that we don't want to start. But I had that conversation with him. That was the only conversation I had. And while he was there, he didn't do anything that was outside of our rules or against ROE. He did get attacked during a base raid that he participated in. It just happened to be we were raiding an MBD base, and he got a little bit heavily targeted from the defenders. And to be honest with you, there was nothing wrong with that from their end. They're defending a base. They decided they wanted to target him more than the other players that were raiding. Who cares? So on. But that was the only thing that we had during his little short stay at Dark. And the whole reason why he was there to begin with was to try to help the IMM guys understand how we operate and, not to do things that have led them to where they're at now.
That seems reasonable.
The question is, did he learn enough to not want to go against IMM leadership's decisions?
Well, that's something only he can answer. He wasn't there very long, and that's only something he can answer. And be honest with you, if you guys decide right now we're going to stop fighting and we're going to agree to go our separate ways, we're not going to hit each other for X amount of time, and we're going to treat everything as complete ROE after. And if Daniel doesn't agree to it and IMM kicks him, that should be following the agreement. And if Daniel follows the agreement, then there's no reason to worry about it. But you won't know that until you actually do it. You can't rely just on past history, because there have been many players who have gone rogue and did the dry hitting thing, and everybody's retaliated. Dark's had the same issue where we retaliated on a player. They go to a different alliance, and we attack that alliance too, and so on. Every alliance just about has somebody that's done that at some point. So past history is past history. What are we doing right now going forward? And are we going to hold those people accountable? And not just Daniel, because this is starting to sound like a war on Daniel versus a war on IMM, to be honest with you. But if anybody violates the agreement, are we going to hold them accountable? If you do, then great. We keep the peace. If you don't, then obviously it'll restart things. And be honest, you guys have been doing this for so long that it's just annoying at this point. At first, it was kind of interesting and funny, but I'll be perfectly honest with you, it's just annoying. And I hear the troll stuff about Mudd. Who cares? It's his right to do it. You don't want to hear it in GC? Hit the block button and move on. So that's my piece on it.
And Nash, to that point, that's part of the reason why when we saw the agreement, which we didn't have a hand in crafting, we just made some comments to MBD about what we thought about it. They have their own opinions on it too, and IMM has their own opinions on it too. That's kind of the reason why we felt that 120 days was way too long, because it's easier just to stop everything and move on if that's what everyone agrees to. But putting a timer on it is I think it's a little bit too excessive.
I'll agree. 100 days is way too.
Putting a 4-month timer on it just prolongs things, and it keeps the idea of having that conflict out for those 4 months instead of moving on. You're still looking at that end, and it's not necessarily going to end at the 4 months. There's still going to be some bad feelings or emotions or whatever, but yeah, I don't think it's the right strategy in regard to ending all this conflict. I think coming up with a valid agreement that both parties agree to, a little admission of guilt on IMM's part, for breaking whatever, the previous 3, peace accords were, and then just moving on is probably the ideal thing to do. But delaying it by 4 months, I just don't see that. It just keeps everything out there for 4 months, and it increases the opportunity, I guess, if you will, or the chance, if you will, that somebody is going to piss somebody off and then it's going to rehash all again. It could be something as simple as a mistake, an honest mistake on either party's part that could just blow everything back up again. So that's just my opinion. Over.
And I agree with that. Make it a realistic time frame. Do a week.
That's what I said.
Everything goes back to ROE. If there is an incident, before we jump to straight all-out war, talk to each other. Say, hey, we had a problem here. Okay, I'll take care of it. And here's how.
That's exactly what we had. Yep.
Yeah. Just say, all right, we're persona non grata. Nobody sees each other. If you see an IMM tag, just look the other way. We're not going to hit your bases. We're not going to hit your miner. We're not going to hit your floating warships. We're not going to do anything against you and you don't do anything against us or MBD for a week. And that establishes the behavior. And then back to ROE. Okay, if you've got a base that's unshielded, guess what? You're going to give me your resources. Or if you go OPL, yeah, we'll take your OPL. Quite frankly, I'm not interested in their 1200 OPL 2-star gas, but whatever. It's like you do what normal, reasonable play is. But in order for us to get there has to be some sort of reasoning. The reasoning has to be, all right, if you break this agreement, that player has to pay. And same thing on our side. If somebody on our side breaks the agreement, because I'll be honest, we over communicate in our alliance. So now whether everybody hears it or reads it or takes the time to pay attention, that's on them. But we over communicate in our alliance to make sure that our players know what's going on. And I think that was the big disconnect within the past 3 or 4 peace accords, was that there wasn't communication within their ranks. So and if there was, if somebody disagreed, they were free to do their own thing, no matter what effect it had on the alliance as a whole. And that's what they're learning from going to dark, and that's what they're learning from how to be a good alliance, a responsible alliance on the server.
Just real quick, I'm sorry, just real quick, I haven't said much. I just want to add one additional thing to all of that. What's straining these peace talks is that there has been no stand down. Normally, when 2 alliances are at war, in this case, I know it's kind of a triad thing, it's by default. Anyway, there's usually a time period where everybody's just ceasefire, so we can talk it out. I think what's adding to the issue is the energies that we have, to go in at each other have not quelled at all, and during these peace talks, which is I think affecting the way people are thinking about things. So I would recommend, just if IMM really wants to sit down and talk, to go to a 24-hour period of ceasefire so those talks can occur. And if something falls apart or nothing, comes to fruition after those 24, maybe even 48 hours, then resume, the war until another resolution can be struck. But there should be at least a little period of time where we're not seeing each other. I think that would help the cause. It should help the cause, in my opinion. Over.
I agree with that.
Omen, I'd love to agree with that. But if you look on the IMM Discord page, you're going to see when we gave them the 24-hour ceasefire for negotiations back in March to end the third war, what was Kensal's reply? 3 times. Don't care. There needs to be a change in mentality of leadership.
But I think the mentality in IMM's leadership, at least what I'm gleaning from these conversations in the previous podcast, it has changed. And if it proves that they still have the inability to rein their more aggressive players in, then I think that the entire server will see that we have a point in doing in prolonging this war, because IMM can't control a couple of aggressive individuals. I'm not saying that they can't. I'm saying that would show if they can. I think we need to put some of those things behind us and move forward. Otherwise, none of this is going to come to an end. And me personally, none of this affects me as a player. They can rarely find me mining, and when they find me mining, they usually ends badly on IMM, not on me. But it's not about me, but it's about just the overall team, I guess, if you will. I don't know how long IMM can keep up this energy, because they're absolutely not doing or progressing, if you will, through mining or through research or through anything like that. Because all you have to do is just look at the standings on the server events and tell that they're being impacted. And I think we're absorbing the impact more so than they can, just because of our sheer size and our ability to remotely mine in other places, or to use several larger ships to guard mining, etc. I'm not trying to reveal any strategy or anything like that. I'm just saying that in order to move forward, we have to put some of this behind us, and IMM has to take ownership in some of those the breakdowns of those previous peace accords, because in my opinion, what I've seen, they have broken those peace accords by not being able to control their more aggressive independent players, not listening to leadership. Over.
So I have one question about those previous accords, and this is just for information because I don't know. When you decide that you're going to call for a ceasefire, do you allow a time period to communicate it to all the players? Typically, when Dark does that, we allow 24 hours on both sides.
There has to be, yeah. There has to be that time period because not everybody's online. Some people may be 12 hours on, 12 hours off, or whatever. Yeah, there has to be a little bit of give and take there.
And on that same note, if there is an infraction during the ceasefire, all members are notified to inform leadership rather than retaliation.
Right. That's just normal for everybody, I think.
That's pretty standard.
I think what I like to say to Omen's suggestion, I think it's a good one, and I feel very confident we can prove that we can be disciplined and not break fire. So, Mudd, if you're up for it, like we can do a 7-day ceasefire, and then you'll see that we're not a bunch of knuckleheads trying to just do whatever we want. We
just so that you know, if somebody messes it up for your side, Seventh, you're gonna have to kick them.
Yeah.
Well, I think we had, like you said, is a 24-hour period, right? Just in case, because people are rolling in at different times and days for gameplay. But even beyond that, yeah, if someone does an infraction, we'll have talk with leadership. I would say if it's an MBD player breaks infraction, we're not looking for them to get kicked. So we can have
just your troublemakers. I mean, your troublemakers that have been seen to have big.
Yeah, it would be. I guess it would be Daniel, right?
Look. Here's the deal. Listen. Here's the deal. Seventh. I appreciate it. All right, but here's the deal. That's how it's going to have to be. There's not like, well, we don't want other players. It doesn't matter. What's going to happen is if somebody breaks it within the 24-hour period, you talk to them, say, hey, look, no, man, this is what we're doing. You can't do it. Once that 7 days starts, I don't care if it's your brother that plays the game too. If that person violates something within that 7 days, they have to go. That's what's being said now. There is no lateral movement because I think at this point, listening to what's going on, I'm with Nash. This is tired, right? So we've gotten to the point where that's what it is. I think we've established that that's what it's going to have to be, whether it be Daniel or Jimmy
Seventh
or
was
Frank.
just green. The 7th was just green.
Right. So that's so I think, and that's going to go for both sides. What's good for the goose has to be good for the gander, right? So that's going to go for both sides, and it may suck. It may be your best friend. It may be a Commodore, but at this point, it's drug on so long. The stakes are literally this high. So that's what's going to have to happen, in my opinion, and that's what it sounds like.
So, I mean, but if you're up for that, I'm happy to do that. I don't think it's good for me to just keep fighting.
Epi did send his apologies for having to bail. He has time with his other family today. He is our Diplo Commodore. I am obviously not in charge of diplomacy. So that's going to have to go through him in the proper channels. I can't make any agreement.
Can we agree that thank God, Mudd, you're not the diplomacy officer?
Yeah, I'd say that's a good call.
Believe it or not, Grazi made me the diplomacy officer when I was in Most. Believe it or not.
That's true, but you're still a lovable dick like always.
What really happened there, Kirk, is he went through a list of 15 other people until he got to you and finally got you to say yes.
Yeah, nobody wants that job. It's a full-time job.
Well, especially at that point, I've calmed down a bit. All right, I've calmed down a bit. My brag-worthy stuff from my gameplay back in the day was I could pretty much get a rise out of anyone, and I can work them like a puppet. That's how good I could troll. I don't do that anymore. It's just like I don't have the time, and it's stupid. There's been, let me see,
almost
1, 2, 3. There's 4 people that I couldn't get a rise out of. One of them that's not here is KJ, and the other one would probably be Nash. Pretty much everybody else I could get a rise out of. And,
I can get a rise out of KJ like nobody's business, dude. I've got that guy's trigger. I've got that.
No, but you get a rise out of him, but he's actually messing with you back.
Yeah, he doesn't even have a trigger. It's just on auto fire 100% of the time.
Yeah, I mean he's just messing with you back.
And so I've gone back and forth. The one thing I do want to remind everybody, and I always say this on every podcast, Lord knows I say some stuff, I troll people, I really hurt people's feelings, and boy, people fire right back at me, and I expect it. I expect to get what I give, but at the end of the day, everybody in this room, to include Mudd, I've had some exchanges with Mudd, and I've even gone so far as to say that his mother was a nice lady, right? But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure that Mudd and I would have a hell of a time hanging out, having drinks at a barbecue or something, right? So at the end of the day, like, remember, we've said this before, and I'll say it again, that people's in-game personas are not a reflection of necessarily who they are as a person. And I think we've all learned that by now. And if you haven't, then I would challenge you to start paying a little bit more close attention to the people and the content of what they're saying, especially on this podcast.
So wait, what you're saying is we need some respect and manners.
Get the fuck out of here. But only one player. Only one player. Not players, just player.
Yeah, respect and manner. No S on the manners.
Well, and yeah. So
I think we've lost sight of why we're here, which is to feed real life currency to our Scopely overlords in exchange for virtual goods that have absolutely no other value outside of STFC.
Unless you're Malenka.
Shots fired.
It has absolutely no bearing on the conversation at all. I just wanted to throw a curveball in there. Over.
Also, we're here to bullshit for a few hours and to maybe solve some sort of dispute that's been going on. I don't know. I haven't been paying attention.
And to give Techman some not edible, but editable material.
Edibles. Well, if you have edibles, you just need to share them with IMM, and this problem will be solved in a couple hours.
I know, man. I know. You guys need to switch from crack to pot. Yeah, you need to chill a little bit.
Chill. We do need some
All
chill.
right, guys, you're all talking over one another. Let's go with Mudd, and then we'll go with Seventh, and then we'll go with Omen.
Seventh, there's something I'd like to ask you. Okay, so say that you guys work out another agreement. It's hands down good for everybody. We're going to move forward. How can we believe that anything in the agreement is going to be adhered to when the same admiral that didn't even tell you guys that this is our agreement the last time is still your admiral?
Yeah, Mudd, that's a good question. I would say I think it's been well discussed that Get Her Done has had some personal issue that's taken away from the game, and I think as Commodores, we didn't necessarily pick up the ball very well, and we're looking at that and trying to address that. So I would say for that specific question for Get Her Done, we're picking up the ball a little bit more. He's dealing with his personal stuff, so I think we would be able to show through ceasefire that we can hold to this final. And I don't think we have to reinvent the wheel. I think Epi and I were pretty close on the last agreement, and if there's more adjustments that need to be made, language in this needs to be modified. I mean, I'm happy to do that with Epi. I don't think we're that far apart, to be honest, from what Epi and I were working on. So if there's things that needs to be changed, that's fine. Like I said before, it's like we need to improve, and we're happy to do it because we want to get better. And we've been talking to a lot of people, see how we can do that. And trust goes both ways. If you meet me out on that link, I'm confident that we can work it out. And my guys are pretty dedicated. We're probably close knit. I think. I'm actually glad I got to talk to some of you guys. Both sounds like we're kind of a similar mindset. Obviously, the power disparity is huge, but it sounds like our approaches are very close, and we just don't. We appreciate everyone.
You guys have some other similarities too. You both have absentee admirals. Just saying. Just saying.
I talk to our admiral every day, sir.
You guys are talking about how do we know you can adhere. This is just a suggestion. It's not for everybody. Some people think the diplomacy status icons are some sort of sacred holy grail gifted to us from the scopely gods. But, you might also try during that week setting each other to ally status. Because if you have a guy go, oh, yeah, well, I saw IMM or I saw MBD, and so I hit him because I thought we were still at war. Oh, really? Well, then why did you hit someone? Why were we at war with someone with a heart status? And that allows the blame kind of to not. It doesn't allow people to shirk it and pretend to play stupid, because some people may generally not know. But at the end of the day, if you set somebody to a heart or something like that, and I've seen it happen within Dark, I've seen it happen within other alliances, that I go, oh hey, that's somebody from so and so, and I go, wait a minute, why is there a heart? That's going to make me stop. I'm going to pause. I'm going to go into my AC and be like, yo, why is so and so set to friendly, or why is so and so set to whatever? And that's how I get my clarification. What that does is that shifts the blame back to me, because hey, there's a heart here, and you attacked him anyway. You even see it on the screenshot. It shows there's a heart right there that we see. So what the hell's the problem? So that's just another idea, just a suggestion to throw out there.
And Mudd, to your point, and I'll be on Seventh's side in this case, since the start of I think this is like the fourth podcast now on this subject. I do think that because this is more out in the open now, that there has been a lot more conversation between IMM members and IMM members and people across the galaxy. I'm sure there's been a lot more conversation now, just because these proceedings are out in the open. More people can weigh in, more people can message, all these other things. So I just think that there is a more, emphasis on, I said it way back when, there's a next man up mentality. If your admiral goes down, somebody else has to take up the slack. Like, for example, with Nona there, Inko is, I don't know what he's doing. He's not playing the game anymore because he's got all the ships. He's waiting for the new packs to come out. So Handy's got to do all the dirty work, right? Same thing with you guys. If Shark Week, I don't think I've ever seen Shark Week online at all, is gone, Epi's doing the work. So same thing here. Get Her Done used to take all the work to himself by himself. and now I think everybody else is kind of understanding where they were coming from and are picking up the slack. So I just think that there has been progression. Don't get me wrong, there's still been a bunch of trolling and hitting on both sides, but I think there has been progression in terms of trying to actively hammer out a peace agreement. So that should show to Bold and MBD that, hey, look, IMM is trying and they're serious about it, and there's other people picking up the slack.
Well, it's accountability, right? It's accountability. So just like, a security camera, if somebody's absolutely going to do something, they're going to do it. But if it's an opportunist type of thing where, hey, maybe I can just play dumb and hit this person I don't like, well, if it's public and everybody's seeing it, it's going to make people think. For the most part, it's going to make most people.
I was just going to say, Kirk, we actually do exactly the same thing. Right? If we set up a no hit on anybody, they allied.
Mudd?
Hello?
What just happened?
Mudd was like, yeah, we do something similar. Mic drop. Like,
Chef got him again.
Chef
came back.
Chef makes it into every podcast one way or another.
I actually tried to get him to come on. He was like, nope.
Yeah, so I do have actually one comment for Chef. You talk about me trolling and blame me for all this stuff. Have you tried talking to me?
Ouch. What a chef comment to fire from a guy that says the anti-chef on his handle.
That's because I hit OPL miners, not just dry hitting.
Aside from dry hitting, I would probably venture to guess that you and Chef are probably rather similar in your play style.
Mudd would go and attack an armada on somebody that's not directly involved in him.
That's a good point, though. Yeah. Nah, you're right. Yeah.
Wait, but Mudd, did you hit an IMM armada when you were at war?
Have I? Probably, yes.
Right. So for all of Chef's red dots, he hits those armadas. So it's war to him. I mean, so Handy, you're not far off in that the playstyle is very similar.
Yeah, he just has a lot more enemies.
Yeah, but he's at war with anybody who doesn't kiss his ass. So that's different.
I don't think that's the case with Chef. Have you tried talking to him?
Let me put it this way. I haven't had interaction with Chef
I had a conversation with Chef. He hit me the other day in an armada. I hadn't even had an interaction with Chef in probably 2-3 months. And he hit me in an armada, and I asked him, I was like, dude, I thought we had talked about this. I thought we were cool. And he came back and said, well, anyone that agrees with Mudd is my enemy. I said,
I haven't talked to her about Chef
and I have
Mudd.
a screenshot of it. It's legit. He said something like that, and I'm just like, really? What? Come on, man. I mean, that's just being a dick for sake of being a dick.
All right, tune in next week when you hear Mudd and Chef on the same podcast talking at one another.
That would be amazing.
I am on pins and needles waiting for that one.
Oh yeah.
I'm just gonna be muted the whole time. I'm just gonna let it happen.
It's like watching a car accident. You just can't help yourself.
Must hear podcast appointment hearing.
Be a lot of rubbernecking.
Maybe you can get sponsors. You can get some sponsors in here.
All right, sponsored by Bob Barker. Help control the human population. Don't forget to spay and neuter your kids. Anyways, getting back to this conflict that apparently hasn't ended yet, while we're talking. So, Mudd and Seventh, you guys feel like you can hammer something out, or no? I guess maybe Mudd, you can agree that Epi will help hammer something out with Seventh, so that you guys are on hunky dory terms again.
Honestly, Epi's sick of it.
He is, but I don't think he's completely given up hope. I've talked to Epi quite a bit about it, as you guys know, I'm sure. But
I think if you guys can keep the same energy that's been going on in this room, and it's kind of funny out listening to you guys, and it's a cycle. I was I was a lead negotiator in my previous life, and it's a cycle, and and I knew it was coming. Basically, if you go back and listen to this podcast when it comes out, most of the stuff that was agreed to was what was presented at the beginning, and then there was like this going back and forth over it, and then we came back to what was talked about at the beginning. So, but I think if we can keep that same energy, if you guys can keep that same energy, I feel confident that you guys will be able to settle it, and understanding now that there will be consequences if this is not adhered to.
Here's the biggest thing to understand about conflict resolution is 99% of the time, people just need to let the person know that they have the conflict with. They just need to get it off their chest. They need to say, hey, here's the things that I feel I've been wronged. I've been wronged. Here's the things that have happened. You need to know about it. Now they know about it. They've heard it. They've heard all of your complaints. They know what's happened. They know what they need to fix. So now we can move forward because they know what happened. You know what I mean? And also, just to kind of add on in the end that we didn't talk about, as far as Bold and MBD's been doing about 90% of the hitting. I have seen the spreadsheet, and it's all MBD members for the most part. Now, they may be visiting Bold, but it's mostly MBD doing all the hitting. Bold is not actually, aside from like their, I think 3 or 4 top players that are truly involved. Other than that, 90% of Bold is really not involved in the conflict. As far as the spreadsheet that Epi has shown me, it's pretty much all MBD.
I can let me sprinkle a little bit of salt on that. That's not true. Because
that's what Epi showed me.
Well, I understand that, but Epi only was receiving communications from about 5 members of Bold because we were in that room in Discord. The bulk of Bold didn't submit anything. I didn't submit but maybe 2 of my hits, and I've hit them probably 10, 12 times a day. So that spreadsheet is not the end all be all.
Okay, so it's not correct. Got it.
No, that's not correct.
Never mind then.
Trust me, we have players.
So then we really have no idea
up that are out there hitting. We're doing the work.
As far as what Epi said, MBD believed that they were doing 90% of the hitting. So you know.
According to the record keeping that they had in front of them, sure. I mean, they have 100% of MBD and 6% of Bold.
I'm not disagreeing with CapnMal on that, but I will say that Bold is definitely not fighting our war for us.
No, we're not. We're supporting you in your war.
I would agree.
And quite frankly, we're paying a lot for it. We're paying a lot for it. So
I would venture to guess that you're paying just as much, if not more, than MBD because you're higher powered, you're easier to find, you have territory, you have more of it. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and we have ways of getting around being hit automatically, and having them come and sweep through our TC. We've got communication, we've got things set up that, and quite frankly, we didn't have it set up before this conflict. So this conflict has done us well to where we can now we have strategy to defend TC. So and we haven't gone full bore into that, and we won't on the podcast. But as far as that goes, out of every war in the history of man comes innovation, and it's the main driver for innovation. So at that, the military-industrial complex is real thing. Ask Dwight D. Eisenhower. But here's the truth of it. I look for the positive out of pretty much anything. Believe it or not, Omen, I do. But I look for the positive. And the positive for us in this conflict is that we have learned to be more responsible with what we do within the game. It's not Farmville. We now know that we have to watch our miners. We now know that we have to protect our territory. And quite frankly, I think that's probably what Scopely had in mind when they came up with territory. not this little, okay, you take this. If we trade this, will you do this? All the diplomacy. No. I mean, everything's got a laser gun on it in this game. Come on. And not being able to mine in territory, while that's a benefit, that's also a deterrent for people to come into my territory. So if somebody visits a bold territory, we've put it plain and simple out on our Discord that we will shoot you down. We don't care who you are, unless you're MBD, but MBD doesn't come to visit. That's fine.
Well, they have no reason to.
They have no reason to. So you look at what is the reasoning for you coming to my territory? If it's a blue ship, I'm probably going to shoot at you.
Yeah, if I see any ships flying around our territory, I blow them up just because.
And you know that I've been in your territory every day, 4 times a day. So it's okay.
I get hit all the time. I leave my ships out on purpose lately, just so people can get some OPL. I don't care.
And that's a weird thing to do. But I don't want my ships to be destroyed, and I don't want to give away stuff that I've mined. I don't want to. The game. I'm there to progress myself, not others, other than my team.
Well, so, I'd prefer it be people that actually need it, like somebody that doesn't have a territory.
Well, then go work at a soup kitchen. Don't play this game. So,
wow.
Well, fuck you too, man. Son of a bitch.
Now it's a party.
But here we are, Handy. Here we are, and I respect the hell out of you, so no big deal there. The different philosophies of how to play this game are always going to be in conflict. They are. That's why the server ROE thing is kind of half-assed. That's why, that whole Discord, it's a beautiful Discord. Whoever spent that much time building it, good for them. But it's not the end-all be-all that they wanted it to be, because that was what they wanted it to be, because they wanted it to look like the Roman Senate before things went shitty. The truth of the matter is, it's not. It's after the Roman Senate started falling apart and Rome started to break apart at the seams.
I'll tell you this much. There's all that talk in the council room over a week or two, and I'm in a private chat with commodores and admirals from the top 5 alliances, and it took about 2 minutes of conversation, and we had it mashed out what we were going to do about dark space. Between about 30 seconds of actual talk.
Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
What is the difference between TC and deep space?
Not much, in my opinion, except
there
for warp range.
Warp range is the only difference. So, because it's actually, if you look in the game, when you look at TC, it says deep space. So, it is deep space in TC. So, why is OPL farming okay in deep space, or in TC, but not in deep space? Doesn't make sense. It's just semantics.
No, it really doesn't. Yeah.
So, listening to you guys and the whole conflict and every conflict that has ever started, I'm reminded by Cook's words, Cook from Dead. It's if you kill someone, you have to rob them. Otherwise, if you don't rob them while you kill them, then it's such a nasty thing. And I want to admire everybody for being so unselfish that if you get killed, that you're hoping to get robbed so that peace can be preserved.
There you go.
That is hilarious. Yeah, if you kill me, I'm going to kill you back unless I've been robbed. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
And Handy, please don't go work in a soup kitchen. I really do appreciate the OPL because I can't mine in my own territory.
What are you talking about? You can't mine in your own territory.
Well, let's see. We have my buddy Jeff.
You can't.
We got my buddy Jeff. Then we got my buddies over in IMM. It's not worth the risk. I'll just go take 15 minutes out of my day and take all the OPL I can get and have a full day of mining.
Fair enough. One other thing, though, just so you guys know who's here and whoever listens to this later, the top alliance has basically had a real quick conversation and decided we're all going to start doing regular ROE and deep space starting this Wednesday. So Wednesday server reset is normal ROE in deep space. At least that's what the top alliances are going to do.
That just means you have to rob people in deep space, okay?
So what top alliances were involved in
that? Dark, Most, Nona. Who else was involved? I'd have to bring.
Is MCRN involved? Please tell me MCRN was involved.
MCRN was in the chat, yes. So they know. They didn't add to the conversation this time.
I believe Fluffy from MBD was in.
Yeah.
So once again, nobody from Bold.
Shots fired.
That's only because we're a top 5 alliance.
Yeah, it's only because we're a top 5 alliance that is really not included in the conversation. That's why I reached out to you this week, so that we could get included in a conversation.
Yeah, you know what? You are correct. You were not included. I apologize for that.
I mean, it's time for the server to start realizing that we're not number 15 on the server anymore.
Yeah, you make an extremely good point.
Even though we don't follow your council's discussions or rules, I mean, Koma's in there, I believe, as an observer, but with no voting power, because for some reason you have to agree to the rules in order to vote on the rules, rather than be a part of the conversation and try to change the rules for the better of the server. But at the same time, we have been, frankly, when it comes to, here's the thing. There were maps in PC. Koma's not available to vote. He's not. Koma, do you have voting power in that room?
I don't believe so. No, because we're not ROE.
Well, neither are we.
Neither is Nona. Neither is Dark. So you look at it and go, so what are the requirements to be able to vote in there? Why are we on the cold?
I gotta say, Captain,
we're not necessarily barking at it. We're not necessarily upset about it. We're just wondering why.
Honestly, you guys really keep to yourselves. You're off in your own little corner in TC. You've been minding your own business. We don't really ever have any issues from your players. Nobody does, I don't think.
It's funny. If you don't have any issues with our players, don't you want to know how we govern and why you don't?
It's kind of like an out of sight, out of mind. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just telling you why.
And like Koma's been trying to say the whole time, we do things differently. We always have. Everybody has a voice in our alliance. We do have a commission that makes decisions based on input from the team. And quite frankly, Koma and I,
every alliance does that.
I would hope so. But at the same time, we don't have an admiral that can tell everybody what to do.
Well, that's the difference, I guess. But we see this as a military game. It's a military chain of command. You have a command structure, and any good command structure takes input from anybody in the command structure. But at the end of the day, it's the decision.
But they don't take input from soldiers. You're talking to a veteran. They don't take input from soldiers.
Yeah, you're talking to a 30-year veteran here as well. Normally, it's a top-down. It's not a flat organization. Yeah, we certainly follow the traditional, hierarchy where you have commodores and admiral. But when it comes to decision making, our admirals are stratified across the entire power spectrum. We have 20 mil players as well as 7-8 mil players in our commodore structure, as well as the higher ones that are about in the 30s. So
every alliance does.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying how Bold is structured. And then when we have to make or posture to make a major decision, it's the entire alliance is voicing it. Even with whom we select as commodores, we have the entire clan or the entire alliance vote for who they want. So we have our nominees. There could be 5 or 6 to fill a 1 or 2 commodore spot for whatever vacancy reason. The alliance votes on who they want in. It's just not, Omen wants this person, so he's coming in.
And well, that's just a kind of a popularity thing then.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not a popularity thing. It's more of a respect thing, because you're not going to get somebody in there that's going to accept the role of a commodore, especially in Bold, how we're structured. that is not ready to toe the line, so to speak.
Yeah, when we first started, when CapnMal and I first started the team after leaving FCFC, we had some issues there. There was a certain unnamed, he who shall not be named. We left, and we started with 2 people. Went up to 7 people. I think we were at 10, maybe 15, and every single person in the alliance was a Commodore, which was a good move at the time. Unfortunately, Scopely changed up their rules to where Commodores could had greater decision making power within the game. But the Admiral spot, we had no vote. It was basically like a weak mayor form of government, to where it's basically a figurehead. That spirit kind of carried forward to where CapnMal and I now split a vote. But every decision that we make, we were very anti top down. Some alliances, they say that they're a team, and we're pretty good about walking the walk. Nothing happens without the decision of our commission. We have a majority vote for most decisions.
I can respect that. In my experience in this game, 90% of players don't really give a shit. Like, they don't want to vote. They just want to play their game, and they're not informed. They're not informed. They don't know what's going on, and that's okay. It's totally acceptable. Sometimes they get involved, sometimes they don't. It depends on when they have time. And the more serious players that are more in tuned and tapped into the community and know what's going on and hear about everything that happens, those are the ones that are Commodores, because they know what the fuck's going on.
But Handy, I think what they're trying to say. Sorry, I think what they're trying to say is that they only work with people, or they want to work with people who would be active, who would be a more of a flat bottom-up approach, as opposed to a top-down structure that they've continually been used to. Isn't that right?
Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I was trying to say. Is that we, quite frankly, because of the culture of our team, and that's the whole thing. It all boils down to, what does your culture look like? How does your team act? Is there a figurehead that is discerning all the information down to the team, or is it widespread? And quite frankly, I would hazard a guess. And yeah, we have some players that are pretty hands-on. We got some players that, they're active. If they were not active at least daily, actually more than that is what we usually require, then they wouldn't be involved. But the long and the short of it is, because of our culture, it encourages every player to be involved.
See, that's the trick. Which I think, actually, that's pretty intriguing.
When somebody earlier in the podcast said that, Bold acts a little differently. You do things on your own, or the other thing was, you're good at war. Well, we are, because we mobilize very well. Because I'd say probably 90% of our players, and that's an easy number. 90% of our players are
cutting out a lot.
They are informed and they feel empowered to be a part of it. Sorry, I'm in a windstorm here. I live in Oklahoma. It's a thing. So let me see if I can get to where it's a little bit friendlier. But what I was saying is, our players, 90% of our players are active enough to feel like they are empowered to be involved. And because they are empowered to be involved, we get more activity from our players. Now, I'm not saying it's all perfect, and I'm not saying it's 100%, because that's impossible with so many personalities and so many people with different situations. But at the same time, that's the type of player that we cultivate.
And I gotta say, I think in a lot of situations, that's probably one of the best ways to get a well-run alliance. So,
but I
commend you for that, and I'm glad it's working for you. That's awesome.
These past few minutes, I've been trying to get this out. Is that is cool, and like you said, for that vast majority of the time, that works. But in that percentage in which we find ourselves now, clearly there's a hiccup. Clearly, there's an issue, right?
Well,
and that type
no,
of
there's
that
not.
mentality.
There's absolutely not, because here's the thing: we are at war as an ancillary. What you're seeing is Bold participating without making the decisions, because we are there to support MBD as our ally. So, and if you look in the past,
the decision to go to war, the decision to go to war was a consensus. Like, how many people need to vote? And
our commission votes.
What's the percentage? I'm just as information. I'm just curious.
Well, we have discussions throughout the commission, and the commission takes input from players. So it's kind of like a Republican form of government without actually saying you belong to who and you belong to who and all that. But at the same time, if somebody has a dissenting opinion, they're free to talk, and we want to hear them. You know, and in our Discord, we have that kind of flow of communication. Now, a lot of our players, when it comes to decisions about war, they want to see a red target on somebody. They want it because it makes the game more interesting.
I don't want to cut down what I'm not trying to say what you guys aren't doing is unique, but I mean, in saying that it's unique and we're different, everything you're saying is literally how Dark works. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. I mean, there's input from everyone, and then it's not necessarily one person makes a decision. Sometimes somebody makes a decision, but on big things, all the Commodores and the Admiral get together, and Rap and Nash and all these other people, they get together, and then they hammer it out themselves. So I mean, it's discussed with the rest of the team and everything like that, and then there's, a lot of stuff is put to a vote and stuff like that. So I mean, it's not, again, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but even we still even run into some of those challenges with some of the other players and stuff like that. So I mean, it's not unique to you guys, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and another thing is that we have a lot less turnover than a lot of other alliances until recently. And I think the IMM war has a little bit to do with that. But at the same time, we have less turnover. In fact, back in October, we tri-merged with RPM and Dark. Or not Dark, but DSMC, Dark Space. So we tri-merged with those three within 48 hours. That was a challenge. That was a big challenge. And, there were some growing pains, and obviously it hasn't had truly a lasting effect the way we wanted it to, but it did catapult us into the top 5. But here's the thing. When we did that, a lot of folks from Dead Space and a lot of folks from RPM didn't understand that they had a voice. Didn't understand that, well, I'm not being told what to do by a Commodore. Okay, so just go play the game. If you have a question, ask. But go play the game. Don't worry about we have a mantra. It's play together for each other. So if you're mining or doing your dailies and somebody else is in trouble, drop what you're doing and get your ass there. And play together for each other. And that's 100%. That's 100% who we are. 100% who we are.
All right, guys. I appreciate it. I'm going to have to wrap this up because we've gone way over. Back to the original conflict. Mudd and 7th and Epi, who's not here, and Daniel and everybody else, you guys think you can hammer something out for next week?
Yeah, I think if Mudd's up, okay.
I have no issue working on a piece of cord, but it's not going to be me.
Yeah, as long as Epi's good with working with me on it, I think we can hammer it out. So, but I know you say you're not involved, but you got a lot of sway there. So if you can clear Epi, me and Epi can get together and work out the language. And I like the suggestion that the Omen had is, have a ceasefire while we're working it out. I think it's conducive, and also that we're making efforts on both sides.
In that case, can you guys all agree to a ceasefire for when this podcast comes out until the next one?
I do not have that authority, sir.
Well, can you take it to your leadership and see if you can make that happen? And 7th to you as well?
Oh, I absolutely can.
Okay. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I think if Epi and I get together, I think we could do the season before the podcast airs. I'm not sure when you're releasing this one, but
yeah, you fuckers give me a lot of shit to edit, so I don't know how long it'll take me.
I told you we're going to give you something that's editable, not edible.
I'll probably need an edible to edit this thing.
So we can expect this to come out in about 4 weeks. Is that right?
No, it'll. Usually the latest it comes out is like Wednesday. Just because.
So the same day that Deep Space goes rogue.
Yeah.
I'll try to get it out before, but
if you could get it out Tuesday, that would be excellent. If you need any help, let me know.
Pressure.
Tech, ever since you uploaded the last podcast to forget the name of it, but it basically Anchor. Oh man, that was such a lifesaver because on YouTube, unless you're a premium member, you can't play it in the background. And with Anchor, like you said, like it's owned by Spotify, so you can play Spotify in the background, and you can just go about your day and listen to it in the background. It's great.
Yeah, I did it because a bunch of people asked me to, including you, Koma.
Cool.
So I'm happy to serve.
The individual Bold member that commented on YouTube wasn't speaking for the team. I want to make that very, very clear. He was speaking of his own accord and his own opinion, which we value. But at the same time, he is one of our PCer members. We don't have a whole lot of them. People that enjoy peace. Fucking weird.
Yeah, they're farm.
But and when he was responding to what was said in that podcast specifically based on his opinion, it wasn't a bold thing. He wasn't.
I told you. I think I said it pretty clear on the podcast. It's one bold member and his opinion. I didn't say that it was a bold leadership decision or anything. It's just I was reading somebody's comment that was actually giving some praise to IMM and some respect that they've earned from the work. That's all I was getting at.
So that person was from Bold, not from MBD?
Yeah, that person was from Bold.
Oh, okay.
But it also kind of prefaced the entire last podcast deck.
So are you saying that he had respect and manners?
I don't know. Probably more manners than Yeah, he does. He has respect and manners. That's fine. He should go. No, never mind. But as far as the podcast goes, giving kudos to IMM is great and all. We disagree wholly and fully, and no disrespect to you, Seventh, but we do.
I think the biggest issue with the comment, because such a long time was dedicated to it last podcast, was that the person commenting was didn't have the full picture. So,
well, I think that's true of most people, and unless you've been in on the conversation the whole time, or at least listened to everything and read everything, not everybody's going to have the entire picture.
Yeah.
Right, and hopefully we've answered some of those questions today by actually coming on the fabulous podcast and setting some concerns at ease.
Yeah, I was glad to hear you guys because we have vacation, so it's good to hear your guys' perspective on things. Hopefully you guys heard our perspective on things too. So,
we'd like to hear a little bit more.
It's good to talk,
to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think we'd like to hear from some of the more belligerents rather than you and the several folks in IMM that have a level head on their shoulders when it comes to this. I'd like to hear from some of the guys that, quite frankly, are the ones perpetuating this.
I'd love to be on the podcast with Daniel and Cam.
Well, Cam was on the last one.
Cam was on.
I wasn't.
I'd like to hear from Mr. Respect and Manner himself.
Yeah, I think for Daniel or Aleem or Kim, we're happy to talk directly. We don't have to wait fast, but if it promotes more understanding between all parties, I think it's always good. So if you guys want to get on a voice chat with Daniel or Aleem and myself, I'm happy to do that anytime.
Don't steal the thunder from me.
Oh, sorry, Tech. Was that the next?
What the fuck?
If I were on that voice chat, it'd be very, very simple. Cut it the fuck out and let's get over it. Cut it the fuck out. Quit being dicks. Quit being dumbasses. Okay, quit poking a bear that you can't handle. And that's all I would ever say.
I think there's an opportunity.
Stop poking the bear and then crying bully when you get hit or hit. That's the issue.
I think there's an opportunity for us to make our own spin-off show where it's just IMM Bold and MBD.
Absolutely, that would be amazing. Can
I
come and just
that's
laugh
called
at
Jerry
everything?
Springer. That's Jerry Springer show, bro.
I'll host that. Actually, I'll be the host. That would be amazing.
I would need several helpings of edibles to get through that show.
Definitely.
Actually, I think it would be funny if half of us did edibles and half of us just got hammered drunk and just went at it. I think that would be hilarious, personally.
It probably wouldn't be very conducive, but it would be entertaining.
A drunk or high mud was not advisable.
All right, guys. I want to appreciate everybody that was on the podcast today. CapnMal, Koma, Mudd, Seventh, Omen, Kirk, Handy, Nash. Thank you all for joining us. And as I've said before in game and on Discord, anybody who wants to be a part of the podcast is welcome to come. Feel free to PM me on Discord. I'll give you perms. And as we get more into other things in game or other conflicts, anybody else is welcome to come and provide their opinions. All right. I appreciate everybody for coming out today. It's been a long one. I hope you all enjoyed it. Subscribe, listen, send me comments. If they're bad comments, send them to Kirk. If they're great comments, send them to me. If they're mediocre comments, send them to Handy. See? Leadership, top down. All right, guys. I appreciate
have one quick question before we go.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Andy, are you OPL?
Am I OPL right now?
Yes.
Hang on. No, I'm not mining.
Okay. Yeah, he is. He is in his Kelvin. Why don't you go get it?
My base couldn't hit.
My Kelvin's sitting in my base. It's OPL.
Yeah, try cracking his base. Chemo did it. No problem. 5 hits.
Yeah. It only takes 5 hits, buddy. Come on over.
All right, guys.
I don't see. Go ahead.
This has been Trek Talk with Tech and Kirk. I'm TechMan16.
And I'm Strange Kirk.
And I'm Strange.
We'll see you guys next time.